Welcome to Project Minty. In this, the first episode, we see my mad plans and all the ideas I've got for building the bus. So what actually is Project Minty? Well, I'm going to be building an upgraded VW camper with modern mechanicals. Minty is a California import. She's rust-free, 1971 Early Bay. She is a rolling shell, but unfortunately that means that there are many parts missing. I'm going to put the engine from a Subaru Legacy 3.0R Spec B into it. Now one might ask, why? So let's get into that. It's fun, it's a challenge, and it will also help with the reliability. And performance and comfort and quietness. Should be a lot better than the original VW engine. I've also really always wanted to do an engine swap into a car. I'm also going to use modern electronics, again for reliability and comfort. And what's it going to have? So first of all we need a gearbox. A 5-speed Subaru gearbox which will be reversed. Air conditioning, climate control, cruise control, ABS maybe. What will I need? Okay, so we'll need a donor Subaru, a Legacy Spec B, Generation 4. Now what's good about that? So it's reasonably modern, it has a manual gearbox, reversed auto gearboxes aren't yet available, and there's no need to defeat the automatic transmission controller. A manual car will also give better performance but slightly less comfort. We do like our automatic cars these days. The plan is to use the Subaru engine, the Subaru loom, the Subaru ECU and control modules. We'll also use the Subaru fuel pump and the body control module from the Subaru, also the HVAC system and the fuel pump and other instruments. I'm considering using ABS, but that's a really big ask, and so I don't know whether it's going to be possible. What's bad about using this particular Subaru? Well, it uses CAN bus, which is a modern networking system for cars. All the modules use it to communicate. The immobilizer, the instruments, ABS and the speed sensor. Do I need to fake any modules? Well, there are CAN bus emulators that exist that do this, but I want to try and build my own. Why would I need to do this? Okay, so we might need to fool the immobilizer into working. It's all connected to the instruments, the body control module, etc. And so we might need to fool the ECU into thinking those modules are still there. If I'm building my own, I do need VSS on the CAN bus. However, if I keep ABS on the car, then we don't need the CAN bus simulator. However, it's never been done before. Some of the things we need to think about are ABS reluctor rings. They can be expensive. Can I get ones that fit the hubs? And what hubs will I actually use? Also, is it dangerous or is it a useful safety upgrade? I don't know. What about insurance? That's another concern. Actually, I managed to find that that's okay because I contacted my insurance company. Now, if I'm looking at building my own CAN bus emulator, then I need a Raspberry Pi to sniff the CAN bus. And another car, so I just happened to have bought another Subaru Legacy Spec B. As you do. So what I want to do is use that car to develop my own emulator. I will use it to analyse the CAN bus data. There's already some info out there, but I need to confirm that the 2005 Legacy uses the same CAN bus IDs as published with other models. I also need to control the HVAC system, and that has a different CAN bus in it too, so I want to sniff that CAN bus as well. Okay, so what about the rest of the bus? Well, we need a fuel tank. I think I can use the original from the VW bus, but I need to adapt it to accept Subaru bumps and senders. I'll also need to think about brakes. Which front brakes to use? Which rears? Brake servo required? I'm not certain. ABS? Well, again, that's something to think about. For suspension, I'm going to use the Red 9 front end. Now that has many advantages. It's modern, it has coil-over suspension, and it has a rack and pinion steering. I'm not sure if power steering is required, but I just don't know. Hubs? I don't know what hubs to use. How much does it adjust up and down? For rear suspension, I'm considering leaving it standard. Oh, going back to the brakes, definitely upgrade them. Probably only the fronts, but look at the rears too. Is there a brake servo required? Probably, but the Red 9 front end doesn't have brackets for a servo. With the wiring, I can cut down the Subaru wiring loom. It's massive. I might need to shorten it for the ECU, which is an awful lot of work because there are so many connections. HVAC, the Subaru blower, heater matrix, AC components are huge. So I want to try and fit them if I can, but be prepared to come up with alternatives. The wheels depend on the choice of hubs and brakes, so that's not really something we can look at straight away. Now what about the cosmetics and the function of this bus? It's no good if we can't go away on holiday. So one of the thoughts I had was to test fit the engine and respray it after fitting it. This reduces the risk of damaging the paintwork during any mechanical work. So what colour? Well, we quite like VW Turkish Blue, so here's an example bus in Turkish Blue. The interior. We need to choose a design. We think we'll outsource that. We've got a number of suppliers in mind. We also want a decent entertainment system. So which car head unit are we going to use? DAB, Bluetooth, what speakers, two in front, tweeters? Do we want tweeters? Do we want two in the rear? And what about a subwoofer for those banging chows? Okay, lighting. We want LEDs everywhere. We also want mood lighting in the bus itself. And one of the things I'm considering using is LIN bus, and I'll talk about that a bit more in the future. Well, we also need heating for when we camp in this van. So some of the thoughts I've had are around underslung if possible, petrol, diesel, gas, dual fuel, who knows. For a leisure battery, I want to fit that in the left-hand side tray beside the engine. Must be as big as possible, and we'd love a solar charger. Every VW camper needs a pop top. Which one do we want to use? Dormobile, Westphalia? I'm not quite sure at this moment. We also need mains, hookup and water. We need a stove for cooking and possibly a sink, but actually that's an interesting consideration because it takes up a lot of space and we only want to use it if we can fit underslung tanks. We need to think about the number of bunks, how we're going to do that. Also, it'd be interesting to look at LPG tanks for cooking with gas too, or heating. Cooling, I forgot about that with the engine. We need an underbelly radiator and an HVAC condenser, also belly mounted. I'm thinking that with the belly mounted radiator we can use the Subaru fan control, with slimline fans, and air scoop. But how do I route the coolant pipes? I'm not really sure. Now for the HVAC, I know someone who can make pipes up for the air conditioning. Now also we need to think about the air intake for the engine. I don't really like cone type air filters, I think they look a bit cheap. But the internet says the OE Subaru air intake design is required to make the engine run well. And I'm not sure about that. It's awfully big. One other thing I need to consider is the accelerator. The Subaru is drive-by-wire. In some ways that's good, because I can adapt the VW accelerator to the Subaru potentiometer. But it's bad in some ways because the drive-by-wire would also benefit from being remapped. The clutch is also interesting to consider. I want to use the Subaru hydraulic clutch, which will need a custom pipe from the master cylinder to the slave. Now I've made these up before, so that's no problem. Power steering delete, I've figured out how to do that, that's no problem on the engine, because I definitely won't be using the Subaru power steering pump. Oh, we need a tow bar, and we need an exhaust. I've found these Varex silencers, they allow you to adjust the noise. We're going to think of a custom build. Going to fit it after fitting the tow bar because we can route around the tow bar mounts. Now thinking again about the rear suspension, we may need to raise it for additional ground clearance. Part of the challenge is that the sump is quite low on the Subaru EZ30 engine, and so we might need an engine skid plate, but we'll see how low the sump is once we've fitted the engine. One of the critical things to consider is the ratio for the gearbox for the final drive. Now I'm looking forward to building the gearbox, but I'm a bit scared about it because it's quite involved. Never done a gearbox before. It's a great chance to learn. So what do we see here? Well, this is a completed mind map. Now apologies for jumping around a bit, but the idea is that it's a mind map and I can use that mind map to flesh out my thoughts. The other thing you'll notice is I've used an online collaboration tool called Miro, and I use it for work, but I set up my own personal account. It's free just to get started with, and I've really enjoyed using it to map out my thoughts as to how this build should go. I hope you've enjoyed my thoughts and weird ramblings as well, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Don't forget to subscribe. See you next time.